So here is what people are freaking out about. A rover camera on Mars froze for 11 seconds. The feed resumed, and a cropped frame blew up on social media that looked like a human femur half buried in red dust. The caption said NASA cut the feed. The implication was clear. They saw bones, they panicked, they pulled the plug. Let us slow all of that down and walk it through like grown-ups. No spooky music, no winks. Just how rover cameras actually work. What 11 seconds means in deep space operations. Why the Martian landscape throws optical tricks at you all day, and how you would test this claim like a professional instead of chasing a thumbnail. By the end, you will know exactly how to check the next viral clip yourself without waiting for someone in a lab coat to explain it. First, the live feed myth. Mars rovers do not do television the way you think. There is no sports-style broadcast with a director switching cameras and a satellite pumping out perfect video. A rover takes still images, short clips, and instrument frames. It compresses them, stores them, and waits for windows to send data back through relay orbiters or directly to Earth. You get bursts, then you get gaps. Sometimes the rover is driving, sometimes it is drilling, sometimes a camera is changing filters or a mast is slewing. That creates pauses and little freezes that are normal. 11 seconds is the kind of hiccup that happens constantly when you are tossing packets across tens of millions of miles and through giant dishes on Earth. Second, the camera story. A rover has a handful of different camera systems, each with a job. Navigation cameras that shoot quick, black and white for driving and hazard checks. Science cameras that make color mosaics and zoom into textures. Engineering cameras that watch moving parts. Lens covers that flip to keep dust off. Auto exposure steps where the system takes a quick calibration shot, adjusts, and takes another. Every one of those moves can create a blip, a freeze, while the mass stops moving so you do not get blur. A stall while a flash write finishes, a retry when a packet does not pass a checksum. None of that means a human at a console slammed a red button to hide a secret third, the shape that set this off. The thing that looks like a bone. You need to be honest about what your brain does on a world like Mars. Human vision is a pattern-seeking machine. It is built to snap a guess fast. Faces in clouds, animals in tree bark, letters in noise, bones in rocks. That reflex kept your ancestors alive. On Mars, wind and sand carve long, tapered pieces. Fractures split rock along plains, leaving smooth, rounded forms. Shadows are sharp and the contrast makes edges pop. Your brain takes a half-second glance and says bone. That reflex has a name, pareidolia. It is not stupidity, it is an upgrade. And on an alien landscape, it misfires a lot. Now the feed cut claim. People picture a single faucet that a secret committee can turn off. That is not how deep space data works. The rover makes a file. It chops that file into packets. Those packets ride a radio link to an orbiter or straight to Earth. Big dishes receive them, error correct them, and hand them to a pipeline that rebuilds images and posts them. There are mission teams in multiple countries. There are public raw image pages that hobbyists scrape non-stop. There are mirrors and archives. Even if someone wanted to hold something for a minute, you would still see the footprints, missing sequence numbers, out-of-order frames. An obvious pause in a run of images that later shows up complete. And on top of that, if the rover actually saw something extraordinary, the mission would pivot. You would see the science team command a circle, a zoom, a second angle, a sample, a different filter, silence. After a single crop is not what a discovery looks like. Silence is what a rumor looks like. Let us get practical. Here is how you would test a claim like this, the way the actual teams and the sharpest amateurs do it. Step 1, grab the image ID and the sol number from the viral frame. Every rover image has an ID baked in. It tells you which camera, which day on Mars time, which sequence, sometimes even where the rover was pointing. Step 2, pull the frames taken right before and right after. Cameras rarely shoot one picture and stop. You want the neighbors. You want both members of a stereo pair. If that camera has it, if the object is real in the terrain, it will appear in the left and right frames with a depth shift. You can measure compression smears and cosmic ray hits. Do not show that kind of parallax. Step 3, check the uncompressed or less compressed version. Rovers often send a small thumbnail first, so the team can make quick decisions. The full frame comes later when there is bandwidth. The worst viral claims love the thumbnail because the artifacts hide the truth. Step 4. Look at shadow direction and shape across frames. The sun position did not teleport. If the shape is actually sitting in the dust, the shadow will be where it should be, and it will change predictably as the rover moves. If the shadow is glued to the artifact, you are looking at compression or a glitch. Step 5. Zoom out to wider mosaics from the same time and place. The surrounding terrain tells you whether you are on a ridge that naturally makes repeating long forms when wind peels at it, or whether you are in a debris field from landing hardware that can throw weird, human-made shapes into the mix. This is not hand-waving. This is plumbing. Packet to file to frame to context. Anyone can do it with patience and the public tools. Now let us talk geology for a minute, because it is the root of so many false positives. Mars is a sculpture studio that has been running for billions of years with wind as the artist. Thin air still moves sand. Sand eats rock. Layers that were laid down by ancient water or volcanic ash break along bedding planes. Those planes leave slabs and ribs. When those ribs sit in the wind long enough, the edge is round. Think about a cow bone you might find in a desert on Earth. Long, pale, smooth. Now think about a sandstone rib shaped by wind. Long, pale, smooth. You get the same vibe at a glance, but the textures give it away. Rock shows grains, little pits. A skin of dust bone has pores and organized structure. On a rover frame with dust and compression, your eye will call both bone. A few minutes with better frames and different light starts to separate them. What about actual bones or fossils? Could Mars preserve something like that? The honest answer is that fossilization is possible on any world that has the right chemistry and burial, but you need a lot to go right. You need an environment that laid down sediments fast. You need mineral-rich water to replace organic structure. You need time. And even then, the surface of Mars is one of the worst places to expect pristine material to sit for ages. Thin atmosphere, radiation, and huge swings in temperature grind and bleach anything exposed. That is why real hunts focus on rocks that hold stories inside. Clay-rich layers, ancient lake beds, places where water once stood. If there were ever complex organisms and big bones, they would not be resting on the surface like a museum shelf. They would be inside a rock or in a stack that takes drilling and careful work to read. Then there is the debris issue. Everywhere, humans land. We shed. Back shells, heat shields, parachutes, straps, blankets, little protective covers. Teams map that litter because it can confuse instruments or contaminate samples. Pieces can blow. Pieces can get scuffed and shaped by wind. A strap fiber half buried can look like a strange white tendril. A crushed corner of a plastic cover can look like a rounded joint. If the rover is anywhere near a known debris zone, your odds tilt toward human junk before Martian biology. Boring, but true. And again, none of that is secret. Missions publish maps that mark where their hardware fell. Now the number that hooked everyone, 11 seconds. Say you are watching a web page that displays thumbnails as they trickle in during a communication pass. The relay orbiter moves, the link rate changes, a big dish on Earth hands off to another one, or a rain squall crosses a ground antenna. The chain drops a thread. Your player stutters. You count under your breath. 8, 9, 10, 11, the next frame pops up. That is routine deep space links ride on schedules, weather, and geometry. There is no magic button that reaches across space and tells the rover to erase a thing in real time. The rover is busy logging, buffering, and executing its plan. Even if a picture sits in storage for a bit, it still exists. It will come down in the next pass. The idea that a team could surgically cut and forever hide a handful of frames, while hundreds of people on multiple teams and thousands of amateur watchers follow every packet is not a plan. It is a movie plot. So what would a real holy smokes moment look like? That is a useful thought exercise because it teaches you the signals to watch for in the future. A real anomaly shows up in at least 2 frames and preferably in both eyes of a stereo pair. The team commands a quick turn or a reframe to nail the target from a new angle. You see a burst of images with different filters that help separate color and composition. You see a request for a short drive to change perspective. You see notes from the mission about a new target name and a follow-up plan a day or 2 later. You see science instruments in that area. A drill, a scoop, A sniff of the air, maybe a laser shot to get spectrum. Then you see a press conference or at least a sober write-up with comparisons and alternative explanations. The quiet pattern you never see around real work is exactly the pattern you always see around viral misreads. One crop, one caption, no follow-up. Let us go deeper on the data pipeline, because that is the heart of nearly every misunderstanding here. Two basic ways to move data from Mars: direct to Earth on a high-gain antenna when the angles work, or bounce through a relay orbiter that is swinging around the planet. Relays help because the orbiter has the power and the antenna to blast data back at a higher rate. Either way, the rover wraps images into packets. Those packets have redundancy and error correction. When a ground station on Earth catches them, software rebuilds the file and checks that it is complete. If a chunk is missing, it waits for another pass or requests a resend in the next window. That is why you might see a quick little thumbnail early and the juicy full frame later. Teams have to triage. They send what they need for decision-making first and fill in the rest when the geometry is better. All of this produces pauses, hiccups, and out-of-order arrivals that look weird if you expect a television stream. There is also the simple reality that cameras and computers glitch in radiation. A tiny charged particle can flip a bit in memory. The software has to catch that and recover. Sometimes that literally freezes a process for a moment while a watchdog resets it or a check runs. Radiation hits do not care about your theory. They happen when they happen. You want a rover that survives them, you will see the scars in data now and then. That is space people. Also forget how much public sunlight these missions sit under. Raw image browsers update constantly. Independent archives mirror them. Researchers who are not part of the mission sometimes point out interesting targets before the team does. There are whole communities that assemble panoramas, correct colors, and map rover tracks. If something is genuinely odd, it gets 1,000 eyes quickly, and the fastest way to burn credibility in those circles is to stretch a crop past what the pixels can carry. I want to spend a minute on why our minds love the idea that a feed was cut and a secret was buried. It pulls on two strong strings at once. The feeling that we are not alone in the universe, and the feeling that big institutions do not tell the whole truth. Tug both at once, and a blurry shape turns into a legend. The antidote is not to sneer at people who bid on it. The antidote is to hand out the same tools the pros use and walk through the steps. Show how to grab an ID, show how to pull the stereo mate, show how to line up shadows, show how to find the wide mosaic. Once you do that a few times, the spell breaks. You start to enjoy the real story more than the spooky story. And the real story is already wild. Rovers have imaged dust devils marching across the horizon. They have watched their own heat shields slam into the ground and explode into debris patterns. They have seen sand ripples move over months, inch by inch, like slow water. Microphones have captured the whisper of Martian wind. Seismometers have felt quakes deep in the crust. Drills have pulled powder from ancient lake beds. Instruments have tasted salts that form in wet conditions. Orbiters have mapped buried ice. None of that needed a conspiracy to be exciting. It is exciting because we built robots that drive themselves on another world and send back enough detail that you and I can argue about pebbles from a couch. Let us say, for the sake of a thorough rundown, that you really did want to hide something. Not a blurry shape, but a genuine paradigm shift. Could you do it in a modern mission? Understand the scale. A big rover mission is hundreds of engineers, scientists, operators, software folks, and partners at different universities and labs. International teams maintain relay orbiters. Ground stations belong to different countries. Raw images go public by design. Papers get written by people whose careers are made by being first to share. You would need a level of control across organizations and borders that simply does not exist. Meanwhile, the rover keeps doing its job and the data keeps flowing. The more realistic risk in any large public project is that you put out data too fast and someone misreads it, not that you hide a bone. What about the idea that we saw a bone and then the mission quietly steered away and never came back? That is not how targets work. When a rover team sees something promising, they slap a target name on it and work it. They log drives in meters and degrees. They talk about approach vectors and instrument standoffs. If a target gets skipped, you see why in planning notes. Maybe the surface was too soft and wheels would dig. Maybe a wheel current spiked and they paused to be safe. Maybe comms windows forced a move. All of that is out in the open. Again, the signal of a big find is more work and more documentation, not a sudden hush. I want to give you a street-level checklist you can read on a phone the next time a scary caption pops up. Can you find the stereo mate or the adjacent frame? Real objects show up twice with depth. Does the shadow make sense for the sun angle? If not, you are staring at a glitch. Is there a full resolution frame to compare with the thumbnail? Artifacts hate high resolution. What did the rover do right after? Did it refocus and shoot again, or did it keep driving? A quick drive past with no pause is not what teams do when they spot something real. Is the location near known landing debris? If yes, assume human junk first can. You find a wide mosaic that includes the area. If the whole ridge has bone-looking shapes, you are looking at geology doing its thing. Run through those. And 99 out of 100 scary posts vanish. The one left over, you hand to the people who love to dig. They will go as deep as you want with spectra maps and model fits. And the whole ride is public known. Of this should kill curiosity. It should aim it. There are real mysteries still on the table. Methane detections that rise and fall, mineral patterns that scream old water, subsurface radar hints of buried ice in the mid-latitudes. When sample tubes from a rover get hauled back to Earth and opened in labs with tools a robot cannot carry, we might see organic chemistry that forces new questions. That is a big swing. That is how you answer the life question. You do not answer it with a cropped rock from a single frame in a dusty afternoon. I also want to hit a human note, because a lot of this viral stuff rides on the feeling that regular people are being kept outside the room. The truth is that modern missions have gone the other direction. They have dragged the room onto the internet. There are nightly planning updates. There are public talks with unfiltered Q&A. There are educators who build classroom kits so kids can learn how rovers plan a drive. If you want inside, it is there at Ask for Attention, not credentials. So where does that leave the 11-second glitch and the bone-shaped rock in the bucket with 1,000 other mirages that Mars throws at us? And that is not an insult. Mirages are part of the game. You put a brain built for hunting and gathering in front of an alien desert and ask it to judge a low-resolution crop. It will fire a signal fast. The work is to slow that signal down, run the checks, and then either shrug and move on or lean in and do more. The more you practice that, the more you enjoy the real wins and the less you chase ghosts. Let me paint the day that actually makes history, because it helps keep your head straight. A rover drills a core from a clay bed in an old lake basin. An instrument sniffs carbon compounds that should not be there by accident. The team does not hit upload on a dramatic tweet. They rerun the measurement. They change instrument settings. They fire the laser and check the spectrum of the spot beside the hole. They call colleagues who live and breathe contamination control. They argue in video calls with eyebrows up and pens tapping. Days later, when the data is still weird and still strong, they say it out loud in measured words and invite everyone to try to kill it. If it survives that, it turns into a paper with 10 names and 3 pages of methods. Then it turns into more targets. Then it turns into a sample return priority. That is boring to a conspiracy post, but it is how a planet tells you something true. Until that day, here's the value in a story like this. It pushes people to care. It gets eyes on the mission, even if the hook is wrong. The job for people who do care is to meet that attention with a little patience and a lot of plain language. Not a wall of jargon, not a shrug and a laugh. Just the steps, the tools, and the why behind them give people the power to check the next one themselves, and they will use it. Final take, there were no human bones on Mars. There was an 11-second hiccup in a deep space pipeline where hiccups are normal. There was a crop of a rock shaped by wind and time. There was a caption designed to flip 2 switches in your head at once and make you feel like you saw a secret. Now you know the plumbing. Now you know the checks. The next time a claim like this tries to sprint past you, make it walk and. Because I know some of you want a longer thread to pull. Here is one. If you want to watch something real and huge unfold, follow the ice story. Follow the mineral maps that tell us where ancient water sat. Follow the plans to haul drilled cores back to Earth and put them in labs with instruments that weigh more than a rover. Follow the work on landing people near shallow ice so a base can drink and make fuel. Those are the keys that turn this from pictures to presence. Those are the steps that will put human hands on Martian rock and human eyes on places where life might have flickered. That is not a rumor. That is a path with dates and machines and teams already building the pieces. Meanwhile, keep your curiosity sharp and your standards high. Ask for IDs, ask for pairs, ask for context. The truth is strong enough to be checked, and the real story of Mars is big enough to hold your wonder without trick lighting. A sky with two tiny moons, a horizon cut by old riverbeds, dunes that hum when wind hits them. Right, rocks that remember water, robots that never get bored. And someday, if we do it right, people stepping out into that light and adding their footprints to the dust. So the next time someone tells you the feed was cut and the bones were buried, smile, pull the data, and let the planet speak for itself. It has a lot to say, and it does not need a jump scare to keep our attention.